the scaremongering, as a result of newspapers being irresponsible and other individuals, a whole generation of kids did not get vaccinated, and they put a whole number of other people at risk.
Can I just say, this absolutely infuriates me. This is the reason it is a newspaper's responsibility, and I'm proud that the Daily Mail takes this very seriously, to report the facts. You know, there was a man who claimed... These claims, they were taken as credible, that kind of ridiculous. They were taken by everyone as Caroline, don't be silly, darling.
Let's answer.
Working for the Daily Mail, you're never going to be a favourite of the left, you're never going to be a favourite of bishops and princes and kings and prime ministers. The Daily Mail is outside the political village. It is... Well, it is. I mean, there's the old expression about, outside the tent. That's the Mail. And we don't get invited on the Mail to all the sort of cosy Lord Levy's dinner parties or David Cameron's dinner parties.
I don't know, you'd have to ask people in the countryside, but I do think journalists like you have to accept some responsibility for this. Nick Griffin described you as his favourite journalist. You know, you've got to...
That's not my fault.
No, it's not your fault at all.
I'm sure the Socialist Workers' Party like a lot of what you write. I mean, that's smear by association.
I'd be very surprised if the Socialist Workers' Party liked anything I wrote. But the fact remains, the same lies the BNP peddle, you peddle in your column every week. It is a fact that in this country, a single asylum seeker gets paid £33 a week, a third below the poverty level, according to Oxfam.
I suggest you, before you come on making allegations, I suggest you come in with your facts right and get them right.
I suggest you look at the facts. You look at the Oxfam reports.
Me with a BNP.
How much does an asylum seeker, single asylum seeker in this country...
That's not what we're here to talk about.
Because you don't know your facts. You constantly...
It's not what we're here to talk about.
Every week you describe asylum seekers as being, and this is a quote from you, showered with benefits. A single asylum seeker receives £33 a week. In your novel, To Helena Handcart, which was accurately described by my colleague David Aronovich as a 400-page recruiting pamphlet for the BNP, you describe a single asylum seeker receiving £117 a week. They receive 33. You propagate anti-asylum seeker lies just as surely as this man. Name me one lie I've made. I've cited several factual and direct lies you have made. Name me one lie I've made.
Accusing me of being a recruiting sergeant for the BNP. If you've actually
propagate the lies?
What I've written about the BNP, I've described them as knuckle-scraping scum in my column.
Yeah, and yet you create a culture where they can spread by feeding the lies on which they feed. Do you like Richard Littlejohn as a journalist?
I think this is absolutely academic.
Well,
we haven't come on here.
Do you like his writing?
We haven't come on here to have an argument about me.
Your leader's a great fan of his.
Our interests lie, as the West's interest lie, is in neutralising Iran. We have allowed Iran the time over many years through this farce of talking to people who cannot be talked to continue with its pursuit of a nuclear bomb with which it intends, it says, to commit genocide against Israel, a state which is declared for the last 25 years war against us. That is the problem. That is the problem, the defeatism of the British people against a clear threat to this country's interests. You are the problem.
Melanie, I was with you. Melanie, I was with you all the way. I was with you all the way until you said we've got to neutralise Iran, and then I just.
You laugh. Neutralise Iran. The British audience laughs. How trivial of you. How incredibly ignorant of you. Do you not understand what a threat this country is to us? No, you don't.
All right. Melanie,
Paranoia. Paranoia.
OK, hold on a second. Wait a minute. All right.
Because the Conservative Party is in favour of the European Union. The Conservative Party is against punishing criminals. The Conservative Party is in favour of the failed comprehensive experiment in education. The Conservative Party is in favour of mass immigration. That's why the Conservative Party is out of touch. The issue of same-sex marriage is so immensely trivial and unimportant. It's only raised as a wind-up to draw poor, silly old Conservatives out of their caves so that they can be made to look like bigots and fools and howled at and jeered at as homophobes. By
why would the Prime Minister want to do that?
Why would he want to do that? Because he hates his party. He hates most of the members of it. And
he wants to drag them down to defeat.
He loves to appeal to the Guardian newspaper and the BBC by bashing his own party and having rows with it. There's a new Liberal victory
if you have a
which
problem
will
with this,
not tolerate.
don't propose to a gay man.
Will not tolerate, and increasingly wishes to suppress conservative
Do you think
opinion.
we're going to be arresting you in toilets, Peter, and subjecting you to kind of aversion electroshock therapy in order to get you back to your views?
Do you know what, Will? I think that the time is coming when people who have conservative Christian opinions will actually face persecution of one kind or another.
I understand what Peter's saying, and I understand his frustration. As a person that has to deal with drug addicts in my life, they're a frustrating type of person to deal with. But I think, Peter, that if you can find in yourself to look at human beings with compassion and love, rather than with aggression, you'll find that there's more of an opportunity for progress. I know it's annoying.
I don't wish to be lectured on aggression by you. You've been extremely aggressive to me in the past when we've met.
That's just because of the bigotry, Peter. I don't mean it. I'm only having a bit of fun because of the Daily Mail stuff and that.
When you actually learn to use reason, you can accuse people of bigotry. Until then, I should keep very quiet about it. Learn to use some reason in this matter. Why is a comedian being given a programme on the BBC to push a policy about drugs?
Because he has first-hand experience of drugs.
Why is our debate on drugs so debased that this is the kind of thing we are reduced to?
Peter, why are you so angry?
I'm angry because many young people in this country are being betrayed.
What do you think we should do?
By a feeble government and a feeblest...
What do you think we should do, Peter?
I think we should enforce our law against illegal drugs.
More people in prison?
I don't want people in prison, no. I want people deterred from taking drugs,
How?
taking drugs which will ruin their lives by punishment.
How, mate? I want that. I don't think people should take drugs.
You ask a question, you better listen to the answer. I want them deterred by effective policing. Listen to what I'm saying, you'll learn something.
I've heard it before, Peter.
Well, you plainly weren't listening that time either.
I don't even think you're ignorant. I just think you're innocent.
Effective policing.
You're like a peculiar child.
You see, ad hominem and interruption. It wouldn't cost it endlessly. What we have done is committed ourselves to an endless programme, as I say, of mugging the public to give methadone to people who are already on drugs, which has over the past 40 years produced a gigantic increase in the number of people taking heroin and cocaine
from Victorian Britain.
But Russell's one of the lucky.
Victorian Peel. He's a fantastic fellow.
Well, we know that the Tory party, as we know, is a soppy Liberal party, so that's no surprise.
There's nothing easy and soppy by getting off drugs. Now, Russell is one of the lucky ones. Russell is one of the lucky ones who can come here and tell his story, and we want other people to hear that story. But the reality is that the access to rehab that Chip offers and others isn't enough. It's not around the country. We want to ensure that there's more people who will be able to access that treatment and tell that story. Whatever you think of Russell, it's a good story to tell.
And some of the most
inspirational people.
An Olympic conversation. You need to put your hand
in terms of the Olympic.
I'd love to see the embrace between you and the Conservative Party. The more of it, the better. The more people will realise how useless the Conservative Party is to people in this country who care about these things. But the fact is, your policy.
That was the idea.
You admit it now.
I think he's quite a lovely fella deep down, and he's just a little bit confused.
Let me set the scene. If you don't know who Samantha is and you haven't heard or read this article, here's an extract from it. She says here, throughout my adult life, I've regularly had bottles of bubbly or wine sent to my restaurant table by men I don't know. Once a well-dressed chap bought my train ticket when I was standing behind him in the queue, while there was another occasion when a charming gentleman paid my fare as I stepped out of a cab. Another time, as I was walking through a market, I was tapped on the shoulder and presented with a beautiful bunch of flowers. It's like that Lynx effect, isn't it? Even bartenders frequently shoo my credit card away when I try to settle my bill. And whenever I've asked what I've done to deserve this treatment, the donors of these gifts have always said the same thing. My pleasing appearance and my pretty smile made their day.
That's offended people. It's this suggestion that women, generically and in society, don't like you because you're pretty. And from my point of view, and as somebody who has varied friends in diverse groups, I have never felt as a woman, disliked because of the way that I look, and definitely not disliked by women.
Maybe the fact that you say you're beautiful, I mean, it's one thing to think you're attractive, but to actually come out loud and say it and put it in print and say, you know, I am a beautiful woman, does have a certain arrogance about it. And then I thought, well, is it that people, we don't hate beautiful women, we don't like arrogant women or men?
If, as a person, everywhere I go, I am met with a certain reaction from people, and for example that reaction is negative, well, if you just hear me out, if I get that reaction, I have to in the end embrace the fact that actually it might be me that needs to change and not the society around me.